Well, we do get that question quite a bit. Can you buy gold in your IRA? Can you actually take physical possession of it and be able to get it in your hands? And the answer is yes. But before we get into that, we really need to talk about how not to buy gold in an IRA. And it really deals with taking possession. Gold has become very popular here lately. In the last 4 years, more and more people have been investing into gold with their retirement accounts. There seems to be a flight from the dollar. The federal debt is at a historic level. That's a reason. Actually, it's more like 5 trillion reasons in the last 4 years. About 16 trillion reasons overall for the national debt. You start looking across the ocean, and the euro really looks no better. In Europe, there's financial turmoil in nations like Greece and Spain and Italy. In fact, the entire European Union looks like it could, come apart at the financial seams just about any day. And then there's the Middle East, the never-ending conflicts, the war that's gone on for, 10, 11 years, the crisis with our generals and Benghazi and the threat of new wars in the Middle East, Israel, the new Muslim Brotherhood. There's a lot of things going on, and a lot of people are wanting to flee to gold, and they want to take part of their IRA and do that. So we certainly understand people seeking the safety of precious metals in their IRAs, but you don't want to jump from the fire into the frying pan. Not everybody's interested in holding on to physical metals. But let's face it, unless you have the physical metals, all you really have is a paper receipt of your ownership. I mean, do you really know if your gold's there? Can you trust the ones watching your gold? There's a danger, and it's called what's called a third-party risk, because there's a third party holding your gold. So let's talk about a few ways that you can hold gold, and you can see when we get done the advantages that we have of you being able to actually hang on to the gold yourself, the physical gold, to be able to see it and hang on to it. You can buy gold on the commodities market. The ETFs, the SLV, the GLD, they're kind of like mutual funds, and so you would end up with shares in that. Companies claim that they have the gold in the warehouse, and then they issue the receipts to the metals that are being held. And what you buy and sell really are the receipts or the rights to that underlying asset. But what if they sell more receipts than there is gold? Now, no one would ever know unless they all made demands at once. But that couldn't happen, right? Well, let's listen to Jeffrey Christian. He's from CPM Group. He's one of the most trusted names in the precious metals industry. He's testifying before a committee.
Precious metals are financial assets, and like currencies and T-bills and T-bonds, they trade in the multiples of 100 times the underlying physical.
So he's saying there, precious metals are a financial asset like currencies, but that they trade in multiples of 100 times the underlying physical. So think of it this way, there's 1 bar of gold there, and there's 99 other people and then yourself that have a receipt to that underlying asset. Now, why do we buy gold and silver? We buy it in case the you-know-what hits the fan. So that happens, and there's a revolution, we're invaded, there's a crisis, there's a destruction, there's a huge hurricane, earthquakes, whatever. There's some sort of breakdown. That's why you have gold and silver. That's the reason you have it. So now you're running around with a piece of paper, and there's 99 other guys out there besides you with the same paper title to that same piece of gold or silver. That's what he said. And he didn't even blush. Like George Orwell's 1984 Newspeak, the market has redefined our gold vocabulary. Again, listen to Mr. Christian.
And people will say, well, and you've heard it today, there's not that much physical metal out there. There isn't. But in the physical market, as the market uses that term, there is much more metal than that. There's 100 times what there is.
See, he says, but in the physical market as the market uses the term. So he's not saying the physical market, the real physical market. He said, no, as they use the term, and the term means not just physical, it means all the paper stuff. So in our example, in the real world, you and I would say there's one physical bar of gold. But the market now says, no, 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 there's 100. 99 people with receipts, and then the one guy with the receipt and has the bar of gold. There's 100. Well, that's nuts. So when the markets say something about the physical market, they mean the one physical bar and all the other pieces of paper that claim that silver or that lone bar. Now you can well imagine if a few percentage of people all wanted their gold or silver at the same time, the market would explode upward until finally the jig was up, and then whoever's got the physical hangs on to it and the pieces of paper aren't worth anything. And there's no wonder. There's been reports of people wanting to take physical delivery and being offered cash premiums not to take the physical material. So now let's talk about another way that you can hold gold with your IRA. In this way, you can buy a specific bar or coin. So you're not lumped in with everybody else. You actually buy, I buy that coin. And then you turn it over to a storage facility, a depository or a bank lockbox to hold that actual gold. Now again, though, you just have a piece of paper and it shows the ownership. Now this time at least you know the gold's there because you put it there. But other people know it's there too. It would be very easy for that to be seized. And remember, the reason we hold this material is in case some real tragic event happens. Now, this third party has it. Now, they have the specific gold that you bought, so we don't have to trust that they actually have it there when they tell us, but we actually gave it to them. We buy the specific material. But maybe you've heard of a company called MF Global. Now, they prove that a custodian can cross the line and run off with your material and really not even be punished. MF Global's illicit actions, they were discovered when the firm faced demands that were stemming from big bets that they made on European debt. So they took their money and they bet it on European debt. They got on the wrong side of it, lost their shirt, and they went in, and MF Global employees tapped into customer accounts to meet the firm's needs, even though the money belonged to thousands of ranchers and farmers and other MF Global clients. Gerald Salente is one of them. Just Google that. We have a link on our website of Gerald talking about how he lost well over $100,000. Now, how do you get away with that? The head of MF Global, his name's John Corzine, he told the House Agricultural Committee he was stunned to learn of the missing money. We're talking $1.6 billion. He was stunned. Didn't know where it went. He sympathized with the firm's former clients, but he no longer has any idea where it went. He says he doesn't have access to the crucial data and the documents that would help really untangle the mess. Now, this really wouldn't apply to you with gold, would it? Well, let me read to you what Barron's had to say. This is from Barron's, an article, The Silver Rush at MF Global. It's one thing for $1.2 billion to vanish into thin air through a series of complex trades, the well-publicized phenomenon that bankrupt MF Global. It's something else for a bar of silver stashed in a vault to instantly shrink in size by more than 25%. That, in essence, is what is happening to investors whose bars of silver and gold were held through accounts with MF Global. The trustee overseeing the liquidation of the failed brokerage has proposed dumping all remaining assets, gold, silver, cash, options, futures, commodities, into a single pool that would pay customers only 72% of their holdings. In other words, while traders have already paid full price for delivery of specific bars or silver and hold warehouse receipts to prove it, they'll have to forfeit 28% of the value. And to boot, they're still charging them fees for storage of the commodities. So, I don't think you want to have your gold and silver there. Now, why isn't this guy in jail?
The reason why we called John is because we knew he knew about the economy, about world markets, about how we had to respond, unlike almost anyone we knew. And because he had been in the pit, he had been in the furnace, and we trusted his judgment.
You just have to shake your head over that. He's still walking around free. And fact is, if you have a few extra bucks, he just started a new hedge fund. So you might find that interesting. Now, this is also how some countries hold their gold. that there are other countries that will take their specific gold stamped with their stamp on it, and they bring it over to the United States. Germany is one of them, one of the largest owners of gold in the world, in fact. And they've been making news lately because they have decided to bring their gold back home from New York, taking it back to Deutschland, because they don't think it's there. They don't believe that it's still there. And that's making news. Now, if everybody starts pulling gold out and you've got receipts, you really need that physical. So many that want to hold the actual metals in their IRA go this route. And there are a few custodians that will allow an IRA to buy the precious metals and store that specific item with a depository that they have contracted with. But you're still relying on a third party, the depository. And since it's the IRA buying the gold, the custodian handles all the paperwork, and there's more room for error. On our website, we have a link to one client, one of many, that he bought gold and had the custodian send the funds, but then later he was being charged storage fees for them for a couple of years. He got to look and the gold never showed up. And the gold dealer was indicted, so all of a sudden he got kind of scared. He calls the custodian. They said, no, we never got the gold. He said, but you wired him the money. Well, we never got the gold. Listen to what they said in the ripoff report. The custodian now claims they never received the precious metals from Midas Gold and therefore owe me nothing. Yet for 2 years they sent me quarterly statements and charged me an annual gold storage fee. We buy gold as a hedge in case you know what hits the fan, but we leave it in the custody of someone else, exposed to incompetence, exposed to seizure or theft. We have a government that's really not stepping in and taking care of this. I mean, John Corzine's walking around and there's $1.2 billion that was lifted out of someone's account. I mean, you go lift a soda, you go to jail, and if it's your third strike, you stay in jail the rest of your life. So how do we use our IRA funds to protect us, to protect our families from unseen financial events? Well, there is a way to use IRA funds and take actual physical delivery into your hands and store this precious metal where you want, you know, in the backyard, whatever. I mean, it's up to you. You're able to do this and still stay, with our help, within the guidelines of the prohibited transaction rules governing your IRA. You know, we spent a lot of money and sent attorneys to the Department of Labor 5 years ago to check this out. And they said, absolutely, what we're doing is perfectly acceptable. So to learn how, go to checkbookira.com.